In late February, I spoke with Senators John McCAIN and Joe Lieberman from Cairo during the early stages of the uprising in Libya. During that interview, they said they supported imposing a no-fly zone. 3 weeks later, the UN approved that no-fly zone, which has now effectively been established. Before Congress left this weekend, I spoke with the senators from Washington. You all, when I talked to you, called for that no-fly zone. And I think the question that's really out there now is it too late?
I hope it's not too late, and I believe it's not too late. Obviously, if we had taken this step a couple of weeks ago, a no-fly zone would probably have been enough. Now, a no-fly zone is not enough. There needs to be other efforts made, and I want to preclude ground troops, U.S. or our allies' ground troops. That is not what we are talking about, but there's a whole lot of things that can be done. Also, we've got to get our assets over there. The aircraft carrier is a long ways away. Aircraft carrier should have been on station a long time ago. But I think the boost to the morale, I think that some of the enforcement that you're going to see from ourselves and our allies, including a couple of the Arab countries, I think 3 of them, that I think we can turn this tide. I think the next 5 or 6 days we'll know.
I think if the world had acted earlier, 3 or 4 weeks since the conflict in Libya turned bloody, is not a long period of time, but in a conflict it is a long period of time, because
timing is all.
Yeah, Gaddafi had so much of an advantage in terms of logistics, command and control weapons, that time helped him every day while the world refused to make a decision. I think earlier on, maybe a no-fly zone could have done it. Now it's clear from the UN Security Council resolution that's passed that nations of the world have been authorized by the United Nations to take whatever actions are necessary to protect civilians. Gaddafi the other night said, and it's so typical of him, that my troops will go house to house, we'll go door to door, we'll go room to room to find the enemies of Libya. And that's exactly what I worry about, that there'll be a humanitarian disaster. So we've got to, it's late, but it's not too late if we act quickly together.
And the key to it, Candy, is that the momentum was all on the side of Gaddafi until that UN vote. Now, time is not on Gaddafi's side. If he doesn't succeed in a relatively short period of time, he'll be driven back and, over time, I believe, defeated.
I want to play you something that Undersecretary of State Burns had to say on Capitol Hill earlier this week and get your reaction.
I think there's also a very real danger that if Gaddafi is successful on the ground, that you also face, a number of other considerable risks as well. The dangers of him returning to terrorism and violent extremism himself, the dangers of the turmoil that he could help create at a very critical moment elsewhere in the region.
He was at the Senate floor.
Right. He's exactly right. And the other aspect of this, if Gaddafi succeeds, it sends a message to every other dictator in the Arab world and outside the Arab world. If your people rise up in search of democracy, go ahead and clamp down and kill as many as you need in order to stay in power. That's the message. That would be a terrible message to send to people who are aspiring to freedom and democracy.
Senator, you have this statement by the Undersecretary. Right. You've had the President of the United States saying Gaddafi has to go. This is pre-UN vote, but nonetheless, you've had the Secretary of State Hillary Clinton saying Gaddafi has to go. So it seems to me this no-fly mission is something far more than that. It's bent on getting him out.
Well, you're absolutely right. Look, the first thing I want to say is, once the President of the United States says, as President Obama did, that Gaddafi must go, if we don't work with our allies to make sure Gaddafi does go, America's credibility and prestige suffers all over the world. I had the opportunity.
So we can't afford to let him stay in office.
We can't afford to let him stay in office. I want to say, too, that the first people who asked John and me to please do something to help the opposition to Gaddafi in Libya were the students, the young people who led the uprising in Egypt, because they see Gaddafi's targets in Libya as their brothers and sisters in this Arab Spring. And if Gaddafi survives, the Arab Spring maybe comes to too soon an end. At least it doesn't move beyond Tunisia and Egypt.
On a tactical level, Gaddafi is acting land, sea, and air. And we can take out the air and the sea component of that very quickly. This is ideal terrain for air power. This is made for aviators. And so I think with significant air assets, we can have a really big impact. Now, how quickly we can move back and get him out, I think it's going to be a matter of time.
And by that, you mean months? Because what you're doing really is...
Because you see, there's so much got to do with morale and momentum. I think that if it looks like to the people around Gaddafi and the average soldier that is now fighting for Gaddafi that it's a matter of time, I think it's possible, I emphasize possible, you could see a rapid situation, a rapid deterioration on the side of Gaddafi.
I think we've got to be ready for a longer battle to get him out of there. But it could go more quickly because his troops could lose their confidence and abandon him.
And I am confident in the military capabilities that we have as well as other capabilities. For example, jamming his communications. For example, getting in some much needed weapons. Getting some people trained. There's a lot of things we can do besides just the air power component of it. But so I have great confidence in our capabilities. The most mightiest nation in the world is now matched up against a third-rate or fourth-rate power.
Let me ask you a bottom-line question here. Would it have been better? There's so many people from Libya, reporters included, who have said he was just needed up.
Oh, yeah.
And he was just ready to go. And then there was this 2-week delay while we waited for the UN to do something. Did President Obama wait too long on the UN to act?
He waited too long. There is no doubt in my mind about it. But now it is what it is. And we need now to support him and the efforts that our military are going to make. And I regret that we didn't act much more quickly, and we could have. But that's not the point now. The point now is let's get behind this effort, do everything we can to support it. And I say to my friends in the Congress who are nervous about another intervention, I'm confident we can prevail. And I'm confident that if we hadn't have taken this action, that the consequences of failure would have reverberated for years.
Up next, we'll get reaction from 2 former top officials, former CENTCOM Commander Admiral William Fallon and former Joint Chiefs Chairman Richard Myers.